I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. Losing your job is obviously stressful. You might wonder how you're going to pay your bills or buy groceries. Not everyone has the savings to get them through. Most of us are supposed to get unemployment benefits, but for some in Oregon, it can be a real hurdle to get that money. And that's our big story tonight. The Oregon Employment Department says they are making progress in helping people log on to their new online system for filing unemployment claims. But Governor Tina Kotek and the people who contact our newsroom every day say the agency is still not doing enough. In March, the Oregon Employment Department rolled out a new platform. It's called Francis Online. It's been in the works for several years. It's meant to replace an outdated system from the 90s. You might remember it well. It's the system that melted down during the early months of the pandemic. These days, we're still hearing from plenty of you who are having issues with it. Aaron wrote in to say, I've been out of work since March and have done all the necessary steps to collect benefits and have not received a single payment. The unemployment department just keeps sending me messages saying they're processing my weekly claims. Meanwhile, we are going broke while nothing happens, and it's impossible to talk to an actual person. Justin chimed in to add, I dialed over 400 times one day trying to reach someone and couldn't even get into the holding queue. The line was busy the whole day. I called again right at opening and the line was already busy. I dialed again for an hour and finally got through and was put on hold for 2 hours and 45 minutes. Holy smokes. Then I was going to be transferred to a specialist. The next estimated hold time was 4 hours and 45 minutes. After about 30 minutes on hold, I just hung up. I would too. I tried to call back and of course the line was busy. Now, Oregon Governor Tina Kotek addressed the way the department is operating during a press conference late last week.
It is one of those things that I've been really not happy about. And we've had conversations directly with the department about this. What I've said to the agency is we have to do better. I don't want to read any more stories about someone who can't pay the rent and is going to lose their housing. That would be counterintuitive to what we're trying to achieve.
And the Oregon Unemployment Department has been refusing to do any one-on-one interviews and answer our and your questions on this. But in a press release last week, they say the new system is starting to work as intended. The department says they've paid out about $111 million in benefits in the 9 weeks since the new system launched, and they've processed about 30,000 claims a week for the past 6 weeks. They say nearly 94% of people are using the system successfully now. The department says some of the problems they're dealing with, the long phone wait times, for example, the delays in getting claims approved, have been around since before this new system. For that, they blame the feds. They say the feds don't have the staffing levels they need because the federal government is not paying them enough money for that staffing. Kotek says the state legislature approved funding for new staff, but that they need to give her a better plan.
The legislature did allow for more money at the employment department. They're up to hiring 70 new staff to help with the backlogs to get people through. The numbers are improving, but not up to my satisfaction. And we're continuing to work hard with the agency. Like, we need to see some new ideas in addition to getting those staff on board. So I wish I had a better answer today. I want people to know I'm not happy. I don't want people left behind. I lived through the pandemic as the speaker when we had a lot of people who couldn't get help. I want to make sure people are getting the benefits they need, and we're still working on it.
The Oregon Employment Department says they're also working on adjusting their staff workflow to address the problems and adding overtime hours for their staff. And they say that they're updating their messaging to the public to be more clear and providing more detailed information about why claims are being reviewed. Here are some hard numbers that they gave us, evidence they say shows that things are improving. The average time for an employee to handle an unemployment-related call has gone down from 17 minutes to 11 minutes, meaning they could answer more calls. The average number of items employees can complete in the new system went from 3.3 items an hour to 6.8. And the average time for employees to resolve an issue with a claim once they start working on it has gone from 9 days down to 2. So that's what the department is telling us. But if you've had problems getting into unemployment or if you have paid leave Oregon benefits problems, please let us know. You can email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail at 503-226-5090. Now let's talk about one of our favorite topics, graffiti, specifically along the interstates. Last month we told you how the state of Washington is one of the first in the nation to use drones to paint over highway graffiti. Tonight we're hearing from the man who came up with the idea that's led to the state's $1 million pilot program. Drew Mickelson shows us WashDOT's new custom tool.
The Washington State Department of Transportation has 8 drones currently in use above the skies of the South Sound, but only one has a 6-foot-long paint sprayer.
Right now, this is the one and only.
DOT Maintenance Supervisor Mike Gauger came up with the idea. He kept getting frustrated by graffiti cleanups, putting his crews at risk and keeping his heavy-duty equipment from bridge and overpass maintenance jobs. A company that uses drones for window washing on the East Coast agreed to convert one for the state to carry a paint sprayer and a hose to a bucket on the ground below. Legislation passed this year will keep the pilot project going. The DOT thinks it will save money and make cleanups safer. The state says the first 5 missions have been a success.
Take a lane and actually have it go up there and fly and cover a big giant, the first tag was, I don't know, big, 10, 12 feet long. And, you know, in a short order, it was covered. Everybody there was smiling.
Might be a glimpse of the future. The pilot program for the spray painting drone went the distance in Olympia during this past session, but there was another piece of anti-graffiti legislation that some of you would definitely be interested in. It's House Bill 1800. It would have given prosecutors and judges an off-ramp of community service for convicted taggers. In lieu of jail time, in theory, the taggers would have had to clean up the vandalism that they created. The bill includes a certain number of hours of community service based on how many tagging convictions a person has. It's an idea that many of you send to us anytime we do one of these graffiti stories. The bill had a promising start. It passed the House in Washington on a vote of 97-0. But then it was sent to the Law and Justice Committee in the Senate, where it got neither justice nor becoming law. Basically, it stalled and died. Today, we talked to one of the sponsors of that bill, Representative Andrew Barkas, a Republican representing parts of Pierce and Thurston counties. We asked what happened in the Senate after the bill had unanimous support in the House.
It died in the Senate for whatever reason, never got on their docket. They, of course, have different chair in their Senate Law and Justice Committee, and not a big fan of anything that has to do with criminalization or changing certain things. So just didn't go anywhere. One thing, it was a short session. So we were in our 60-day session, lots of policy. I've never seen so much policy. So there's only so much that they can move. And it really is at the discretion of the chair. And if they don't like a certain bill, and I think in this case, there may have been some confusion about the sentencing enhancements. That's something that in Washington State, a lot of the laws coming out dealing with public safety don't like that from the majority. So you know, it kind of got hung up in that, and then we just ran out of time. So, you know, I don't think there was a huge pushback. And what I tried to keep conveying is this is not about throwing people in jail. It is about holding them accountable and making them go out and clean up what they're doing.
Makes sense. Barkas tells us he will reintroduce the bill during Washington's legislative session next year. We asked for his confidence level of getting it passed next time on a scale of, 1 to 10. He told us he's at an 8. We'll let you know what happens. Now, let's get to some of your thoughts on our big story from last night that you're not going to see on any other news show in the Portland market. One of our digital reporters took a deep dive on an idea that's been studied by both TriMet and Metro, a tunnel under downtown Portland and the Willamette River for MAX trains. It would serve 2 purposes. One, it would allow for longer trains to carry more people more often with no need for the big slowdowns that MAX trains currently deal with when they enter downtown on the surface streets. And number 2, it would take at least 1 train line off the steel bridge, which right now is the only way that MAX trains can cross the Willamette. As we explained last night, this is not happening anytime soon and would likely cost several billion dollars. But the steel bridge is nearing the upper limit of how many train lines can cross. And as one viewer put it, the downtown slowdown of MAX trains is the bane of so many people's commutes to and through downtown. So, how do you feel about the tunnel possibility? Well, Adam wrote to us to say, a MAX train tunnel through downtown should absolutely happen. It would give us a much quicker transportation option that we simply don't have. Portland is always viewed as a good public transit city, but the one thing we lack is a line that is quick.
Well, I think that's a good idea to build a tunnel under the river. It's just going to cost more and more money the longer they wait. I hope that we can get to it soon.
And how about this one from Brant? The tunnel should be a priority. More investment is needed in a regional rail system. The idea needs to be expanded, though. Trains should be running to McMinnville, Salem, the Dalles, Longview with multiple trips that are every 30 minutes. This could happen if we made it difficult to drive and promoted healthier transportation options. But there is certainly a big chunk of our viewers who say, hey, listen, there's a lot bigger fish to fry for TriMet and Metro before we start talking about spending billions for a tunnel. Many of you echo what a viewer named Tim had to say.
In my opinion, you're not going to increase the usage of that train until you clean up the homeless crisis and get some law enforcement on that train. My wife and I no longer will use that train because we don't feel safe taking it from Cascade Station downtown.
And a viewer on our YouTube channel wrote, until there's more security for passengers to feel safe riding the MAX, there probably won't be much of an increase in ridership. So hard to justify such an investment when there are still other issues that need to be resolved.
I think building a tunnel through downtown for MAX trains is absolutely outrageous and funny. How many more billions of dollars is MAX going to spend? If they're going to do that, they should have done that, 30 years ago? It's, in my opinion, a waste of money anyways. They could have just bought more electric buses.
All right, thanks for that input, Mitch. And we'll end on this one from Ann. Oh no, not that. In an earthquake zone? Crazy. Handicapped access from the tunnel? Impossible. Frankly, I'm glad MAX is running through downtown at modest speed. I don't think MAX really needs to be sped up. Leave it alone. Okay, thank you. If you missed our segment yesterday, you can catch up anytime on the KGW YouTube channel. Just look for The Story. Coming up next on The Story, a Washington family is suing a major hospital claiming healthcare workers ignored their pleas to help their daughter.
And they didn't seem to care. Yeah. Why? That is what I need to know. Why didn't you care?
An investigation into healthcare racism and why the family's attorney says the most damning evidence comes from the hospital itself. When The Story returns. Anyone who's ever had a loved one, maybe even yourself, go through a serious medical event knows that dealing with the hospital system sometimes can be quite an ordeal. Tonight, a Washington family is accusing a major Seattle hospital of healthcare racism. And even though this story is not from the Portland metro area, it is an interesting look at how one family says they were ignored and dismissed because of their race and accents, as their daughter suffered from a potentially fatal disease. Susanna Frame has our story.
Until 16-year-old Sahana Ramesh got sick with a rare disease, she loved the good life, traveling with her family, eating at restaurants, cooking with her mom, hanging out with her big brother, and playing music. Then at the end of 2020, life changed for healthy and active Sahana. She came down with an acute, itchy and painful rash, red spots all over her body. Her feet, hands, and face became so swollen she couldn't open her eyes.
Her face was so disfigured, she was devastated.
The suffering was unbearable.
In the nights, I could not even, sleep. Just watching her, I remember she used to be so badly, feeling that I used to go in the night and say, don't worry, it'll get better.
But it didn't get better. They ended up at the ER at Seattle Children's Hospital, where doctors diagnosed her with a rare disease called DRESS, a severe reaction to a medication.
But by the end of it, they said, oh, here is the ointment, here is the medication, go home.
Over the next several weeks, Sahana's parents were desperate to get their daughter more help. Medical records show, on top of the rash, she had a fever, chills, and a high heart rate. They took her to Children's ER 3 more times. They called the hospital 16 times and emailed them 22 times. Her mother wrote, should Sahana be admitted to the hospital to monitor her heart? Can you please help?
And they didn't seem to care.
Yeah.
Why? That is what I need to know. Why didn't you care?
Even though doctors wrote in Sahana's chart that DRESS could cause myocarditis, heart failure, and was potentially life-threatening, they didn't test her heart for that or admit her to the hospital.
They were looking at it like she had a rash on her leg. Like a little scrape, she fell down, and like a common cold or something. This was something serious.
3 months after first getting sick, the family was settling in for a night of Netflix when, in front of them all, Sahana collapsed. Her disease, DRESS, was causing her heart to fail, a known, documented possibility with DRESS.
Fell back. Within a minute or so, she died. But it was terrible to watch. Every day is difficult. Every day is a heavy lift for me.
How could that happen? Why was someone that sick not admitted to the hospital? According to this lawsuit filed by the family, racism, implicit bias, played a part in Sahana's care.
Our clients were ignored. Their concerns were disregarded.
Marty McLean is the Ramesh's attorney. He says evidence shows if Sahana and her parents would have been white, they would have had a better chance of getting admitted to the hospital.
The most damning evidence of racism and discrimination at Children's Hospital in this case comes from Children's Hospital itself.
Around the exact time Sahana got sick in 2021, Children's Hospital admitted they had a problem with racism.
I share in their outrage.
3 months before Sahana died, one of the hospital's top doctors, Ben Danielson, resigned in protest, saying he could no longer be part of a racist organization, and that patients of color, patients like Sahana, a child of Indian immigrants, weren't getting equitable care.
It is sickening. If the doctor did that on a basis of race, that would be sickening.
The hospital spent $1 million hiring experts to get to the bottom of it. They found Children's was, in fact, enabling and perpetuating systemic racism. Administrators promised to act with great urgency to eliminate the racism that exists at Seattle Children's.
Everywhere all I want to see is her name. Everywhere.
Back at the Ramesh's in Bothell, signs of Sahana are everywhere.
Right here. Candy, a pile of candy.
Halloween.
It's been 3 painful years since her death.
This photo saddens me. She believed in me and let her down.
The family says coming to grips that racism could have been a factor makes everything worse.
Every time I go to any place, anywhere, I'm reminded of her. She could have been alive. Our daughter could have been alive if they had treated her with professional integrity.
Children's Hospital declined an interview, but they sent us a statement to say their hearts go out to the family and that they take it seriously to provide equitable care to all children. But in legal filings, they've said the family so far hasn't provided any direct evidence that racism was at play in the way they cared for Sahana.
Heartbreaking. So what's going through your mind after seeing that? Have you had an interaction with a local hospital that you'd like to tell us about? You could email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. We'll be right back. North Portland's Dawson Park was home to a special expo today with the goal of connecting people in the historic Albina neighborhood with housing and shelter resources. There are all kinds of efforts underway to revitalize Albina, and as Daisy Caballero reports, today was all about helping those who need a little guidance.
We bring the resources to the community and meet them where they're at.
On Tuesday, Portland's Safe Blocks program took over Dawson Park to bring housing and shelter resources to those in need.
What we're trying to do is help bring back communities of color and give them an opportunity to thrive in a neighborhood where they, are used to.
Several advocacy groups, including SEI and the Portland Housing Bureau, were there, sharing what's available in real time.
That there are opportunities to move into affordable housing that was built specifically for people who have been displaced out of Northeast Portland.
It's needed, I guess it's needed. It's few and far between. Do we have access to resources?
Andrew Matagart stopped by because he was tired of waiting around for a call back from housing folks and said he wanted to advocate for himself in person.
I entered myself into a treatment with a housing component, and I graduated that treatment 6 months ago and I haven't been transitioned out. So I'm still kind of sitting there in limbo.
Andrew said he was evicted following some issues with drug use and wants nothing more than a place he can call his own.
I don't want to relapse, so I want to make sure I'm going to a safe environment. And like I said, I'm got to take the initiative and reach out and dictate my own transition.
It should be somebody there who can help in some way to make them feel like they have somebody walking with them.
And that's exactly what Stacey Mingo with SEI is here to do, as she years ago was in a challenging position herself. She's now looking forward to help others with a path forward.
I feel honored and humbled to be able to go back and help and to let them know I'm not afraid to show the scar, because if you see my scar, that lets you know, oh, you made it through that? I did. And you can too.
Now, if you missed today's expo, do not worry. They are going to be happening every 3 months. And the next one will be happening right around the last 2 weeks of August, right here at Dawson Park. Reporting in North Portland, Daisy Caballero, KGW News.
Thank you, Daisy. Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. But remember the story, our collective story, that never ends. The good stuff's coming your way next. And by the way, we've seen your emails about a snippet of the story being used in a local political ad. Well, we're kicking off our political ad fact check with a closer look at that commercial tomorrow night. We'll have it right here on The Story at 6:30.